Now, before we get down to brass tacks, my guest, Henrik, Bollmann, Project Manager, Best of Events International. Big hand for him, please. It's great that you're here. Christian Lohmeyer, producer at Bits and Pretzels. And a few words to Henrik from SAS, the head of SCHMIDT Press, Deutsche Messe. Welcome to you. Now, on the topic, creating a festive atmosphere. Now, you said that's a dreadful word. It's really the negative word of the year. Perhaps we can invent a new word. And increasingly, organisers are dispensing with conventional fixed concepts, and instead they're focusing on a relaxed atmosphere and informal dialogue. But what are the challenges that you face as a team that's used to conventional approaches if you want to reinvent yourself? And how can you work with a previously unknown format and succeed right from the outset? How does a new format differ from an old one? What tools do partly independent teams use to plan and organise outstanding events efficiently? We're going to look at new approaches for event organisers and offering valuable suggestions and tips. So the first question for everybody. Christian, let's start with you. Should we call ourselves by our first name or not? We can be on first name terms. So, Christian, perhaps you can pick up on this word. What do you understand when you hear the term a festive atmosphere? Well, it is a bit of a buzzword. There's quite a lot of hype about it. As far as we're concerned, that primarily means that we're not thinking about whether we need something for an event, but whether we actually want to have that there. We want to have an event that we'd like to go to ourselves and that is as good as possible. We shouldn't look at things in terms of cost controlling and whether it's absolutely essential, but we should look at whether it really improves the event, adds to this relaxed atmosphere, ensures that people enjoy themselves. So this creating a festive atmosphere. There's also the idea of a festival there as well, isn't there? Is that really the crux of the idea? Well, it's not exactly the same as a festival. There are certainly festival elements or festive elements. If you think of a music festival, for example, that's one thing. Whether you can transpose that one-to-one to our sector is something you could certainly call into question. Thanks, Christian. Henrik Bollmann, Best of Events International. Creating a festive atmosphere, what does that mean for Best of Events? Well, we also wondered about whether we wanted to add this festive or festival touch. And we thought, well, how do you define a festival? What kind of ideas can you find in that term? Well, it's partly about having scope to organise your day yourself. Nobody says you must go to Room New York at a particular point in time. Is that the purpose of a festival? You don't need that if you have the festival idea. You can take part in what you want to take part in. You can go to the main stage or the centre stage. We all know that from music festivals. And that's the approach that we went for, to breathe life into the idea. Thank you. Hartwig von Sass, the head of SCHMIDT Press, Deutsche Messe. What does that mean for SCHMIDT? We'll be saying a little bit about all the new things at SCHMIDT as well. Well, on the one hand, this is a moderately successful attempt to describe a trend in the event sector that I think is especially found in Germany. Now, for us at SCHMIDT and the Deutsche Messe, it's a bit like doing open heart surgery. So you've got a gaping wound, and you have to do something, irrespective of what, and survival chances 50-50. In the last presentation, we heard about brand new structures in the next few years as to visitor target groups. There's the millennials, who communicate very differently than people like me, white men over 50. Millennials communicate very differently. We have to take that into account. Future target groups are going to expect different things from events. It's not a gaping wound at SCHMIDT, but we've realised that the event and its visitors and its target groups have actually aged. Now, For exhibitors, it is still very successful, particularly in initiating business contacts. But visitors are starting, in a sense, to peter out, so we took a very different approach than is traditionally adopted in the trade fair sector. We decided not to further develop this model. We're, after all, the trade fair for digitalization, and I think it's vital for our survival to focus on the digital, and we called everything into question, even the name and even the location of Hanover. And is that going to remain? Well, yes, it is going to remain. But apart from that, everything else is going to be created anew. What challenges were there? I see one particular challenge would be getting to grips with this in practice, trying to absolutely reinvent everything. Did you send an email around, or was there an interactive camp, or what? Well, Albrecht Kling's studio was where we had the initial brainstorming event in autumn 2016. We got people from the Deutsche Messe, AG, clients, startup founders, festival experts, and people who'd never ever been to CeBIT, who just knew the name, didn't really know much about it. People didn't even know Hanover as a location. There are even some people who've never been to Hanover ever in their lives. Imagine that. So we got them together for 2 days. And we thought about how a platform might look that wants to focus on a 360-degree view of digitalization with a focus on the future, the digital event of the future. Many of the ideas we came up with in Albrecht Kling's studio, amongst his wonderful wooden figures, are actually now reflected in the new event which we're going to be opening on the 11th of June. These ideas from the brainstorming session are reflected there. As the Deutsche Messe AG, we were set up in 1947 by the British occupation. CeBIT is 32 years old in and of itself, innovating in ongoing operations in an organism which has traditions, which has its own corporate culture, its own communication forms that are established, its own culture, basically. It's something that's enormously problematic. You've got to deal with lots of established customs. You need to really get worked up about things, and you really need to be incredibly tenacious. There are people who've been on board for years and years. I imagine you have people who say, well, I've always done it that way. Is it easy to help them to think outside of the box? Did you use tools, the kind of tools that anyone else could adopt as well, to let their imagination run free? Well, I think success functions in a kind of halfway house. In an organisation, you've always got 20% of people who want to make changes and 20% of those who want to create obstacles. And then you've got another 20% in the middle. There's that 60% in the middle, actually. That's where decisions are taken. It's a Gaussian curve, basically. You need to take decisions. You need to get the 20% change drivers identified in the teams and reinforce their position. You have to deal sensitively with the 60% in the middle of the distribution. I don't mean in terms of employment law, but the 20% obstacle creators need to be isolated in a sense. That's how it works if you want to engage with innovation. So those who want to make changes, you need to strengthen them, and you need to take the others along on this journey. Was that the same for you? From 0 to 100, I believe, something absolutely brand new on the market, wasn't it? But you didn't need to persuade people to turn their ideas around. Well, it was entirely different for us. We were set up by two guys who had successful startups. They said that they wanted to move away from the German idea of always being Berlin when you have a startup. But a lot's changing in Munich too. We started with a small event with just 80 people. Within just 2 years, that's grown to around 2,000 people. And we then said we'd look for a fitting team that goes together well with this event and that has the know-how. So it was an entirely different starting point for us. Well, we've got 100 people working at SCHMIDT. It's a big difference, isn't it? When at SCHMIDT, we've got 200,000 visitors, roughly, even to 2,000. Now you've got a much smaller figure, 5,000, let's say, and you're our most pronounced competition. Our customers, who are the ones who pay for SCHMIDT at the end of the day, come and say, we were at Bits and Pretzels and it's so great. They do that at the Oktoberfest and it's fantastic. And we were in Lisbon. There were 80,000 people there. The kind of event that you have as well. There's just 2 startup founders in Ireland who in just 10 years started off with around 100 people and have ended up with 80,000 participants. It's a fascinating event. And events like yours are the ones that we're compared with. And we learn a great deal from you as well, no question. It sounds awful easy, doesn't it? You've got this enormous tanker and you change the course. Once you've got it moving, then things start moving. But you have to keep it either steering the right course or changing the course. And if you've got this enormous tanker ship, it's one thing, but it's different for you. You're young and energetic. It's going to work. It sounds as if it's easy. Is it so very easy? Well, there's also a financial risk, of course, as an event organizer. A comparison with a tanker ship and a speedboat is certainly one that you can draw on. Well, yes, a tanker ship is slow to start with, certainly to change course, but once it gets going, it really plows ahead. We can change course rapidly, and we don't let partners and sponsors persuade us to change what we're doing in terms of the basic thrust of our approach, but there's no guarantee that it will actually work. But nonetheless, you hear people say, well, I experienced this and that and the other there. Maybe that's something they're really looking for. The visitors enjoy things at these new innovative trade fairs. Does that mean that others are tempted to go for a kind of copycat approach? We organised a festival last year in the context of Festive events. We also work with a whole host of different companies who, because of this festival, launched their awards. That's our background. I don't know if any of you have been to awards event recently. You have to wait for ages until there's something to eat. We want to have more interaction. And as a result, we gave some thought to what we can do to make these award shows a bit more substantial. And the idea was to add this festive event element, or the festival element. So we look at what's happening at Hannover. We're looking at what's happening in the USA next week, South by Southwest. We look to Munich, to what you're doing as well. So it's all a learning process, and copy and paste doesn't work. We're organising our international event. At our first hot house, we had 25 people, and they were really the crème de la crème of experts, and it's a creative monster that grew out of that. That was great, but we have to, of course, observe what others are doing and build on that. You asked about copying others' ideas. Journalists often ask us that as well, and I tend to respond, well, you, as a journalist, also have a quick look at what the Bild Zeitung is doing. I'm going to have a look at South by Southwest to see how it works there. But I don't think you can just copy. It wouldn't work, I don't think, in the event sector. You have to find the right correlation for oneself. Of course, we looked at the major trends in reinventing our event, but we're not Lisbon, nor are we the Bavarian Festival tent. We're not that either, though we like what they've got and what their approach. We need to find the right answer to what target groups want. I think MD who's starting to turn an event topsy-turvy, don't just copy, I'd say. It's not genuine, it's not authentic, and it doesn't work. And people will say, oh, you copied that from there. You're not so creative after all. What's the situation for you? You have a look around, but you collect a lot of input, a lot of information but you want to invent new things. Well, we have FAMAP as a communication association. We can tap into that expertise. We're certainly not Hanover or Munich. We've got a different location. We want to get this kind of project in North Rhine-Westphalia. And the question is where the expertise comes from. First of all, we provide the premises, but there's also an opportunity for the event sector to create something that is quite unique. And of course, it is a process. I thought it was very good with what you said about the 20% who are change drivers, the 20% who create obstacles. We get the 20% change drivers from all of our partners and get together in the working group. So it's quite pleasant to work in our group on that. So this change process, well, people take a look at what's happening abroad and they take a look at what's happening in Germany, and people tend to be creatures of habit. But we can do an exercise. We've done that at our workshops as well. Fold your arms like this. Fold your arms just like I'm doing right now. Go on, do it. It doesn't hurt. And now try it the other way around. Fold your arms the other way around. Feels weird, doesn't it? That's how difficult change is. And one thing I want to say that's also important to me, I think this change doesn't work if you just say we'll get a new label or a new brand. My colleague Frank Gripke at the back and I were walking around like billboards. We've got a new CeBIT logo, but that's not enough. A new schedule, a new logo is not enough. If you want to have innovation in events or organizations, you need to change the way in which you communicate, the way in which you work together, and the way in which you involve partners. You have to change that completely. The question was just raised. How do you get speakers to open up to these formats? And for us, that means, what it means is that we make our customers participate with us. We work much more closely with the customers. It used to be a matter of registering. And there was a lot of legal issues, cost controlling and accounting issues, and they'd come along at some point and we'd do the setup. It's very technical, but now you'd have a big exhibitor, say Vodafone, say SAP, just by way of example. We immediately start doing workshops with them, whole day workshops, thinking about our new formats and our new offers, our new range, how all of that works. For them, we develop ideas and formats together. So we have the clients that we had to date, but we turn them into partners who engage with us. Yes, Adidas, Volkswagen and Aeon, all the top DAX firms send representatives to Munich. Quite amazing. Do you do it exactly the same way? Do you go along and say, well, have a look. We'll get you on board a lot earlier on so that you know what you'll be dealing with. Well, we do enter into dialogue with our partners. We lead them through the process. We want it all to be successful. We know our target group on the spot. We know our startup firms. We know the investors who are at the event, and we want them really to get the message. That's how success works. Then making a run of it the next year is really going to be a no-brainer. Kevin Spacey, right? People say, oh yes, we had a great deal about Kevin Spacey recently, didn't we? And I heard that you made a bet 20 minutes ago, more than 20 minutes ago. That kind of thing as well. Do you just have to be brave enough to do it, or how exactly does it work? How do you deal with that topic? Well, we've produced a statement. It's not a PR statement as such. It was really our honest opinion. And we stand by it. 2 weeks before it happened, we had the last edition of Bits and Breaks. We announced that Kevin Spacey is going to take a stake in our company. Big story. We'd worked to get that for 2 years, and we had important shared goals. And then what happened. We said that as far as we're concerned, we encountered him as a great and reliable businessman, but he can no longer be an ambassador for us, as far as we're concerned. I had to really address this point. I really had to talk about it. You were not the first, and you certainly won't be the last, I imagine. I think, though, that you've really hit the nail on the head there, something that we're good at in Germany. I was very pleased on your behalf that he was going to invest. I'm really trying to talk to you as an equal. I wondered how on earth you managed that. I thought it was great for you, and I thought it was such a shame, the course that things took subsequently. But that does focus attention on something that we're great at in Germany. Always look at the bad stuff. We should, first of all, be pleased that people in Munich, 2 startup founders, managed to get their event set up. It's absolutely brand new. Everyone talks about it and it works really well. It's great. And then this thing happens with Kevin Spacey. Oh dear, well, shit happens, as people say at SCHMIDT. We're going to have so-called fuck-up nights for an entire week where entrepreneurs will talk about failures. We all become wiser through it. Marcus Enzenberger said that we learn through our failures and mistakes. You have to take it on board and accept it. Things like that happen, but it doesn't say anything about the chaps from Bits and Bretzels, nothing at all. Well, I think we wouldn't be doing it right if we just ignored it. Now, another question as well. Maybe Henrik can add something as well. Sometimes people think, well, I have to put this in and I have to put that in, I have to put the other thing in as well to keep everyone happy all the time. Can you sometimes find that a festival or an event really gets completely overloaded, that it's too much? How do you really decide about that? Picking up on what the last speaker said as well, there's innovative formats and some people try to get them into the congress rooms of various different events, fish bowls and whatever. And we decided that right at the outset that we'd have a streamlined approach, to have a focused thematic structure where content is at the heart of what we do. We don't make events for us. Our clients bring their clients along. It's an event for the sector. And that's the way that we do it. We try to keep things a bit more streamlined. And we also want to ensure that there's time for discussions between the sessions, because if you cram information into every single moment, then the important part, exchange between peers, doesn't really work. You go back having seen loads of presentations, but you haven't managed to talk to X, Y, or Z. And there's a certain risk there. You need to avoid that. And of course, you don't want to have this kind of festival turning into just a load of fun not getting the message across. Well, of course, you can have fun as well while you're learning things. And we are, in the event industry, all about fun as well. Not just drinking champagne left and centre, but there's the idea of brand experiences, experience marketing. You want to have that on board too, but there does need to be a serious core to what we're doing. I think this is a rather German discussion, isn't it? I have to say. Oh, well, we need to be a bit controversial, don't we? No, well, why shouldn't it be fun to do business, actually? You just said we're laughing 30% less than we did years ago. Well, why is that? We often have this discussion at SCHMIDT with exhibitors as well. Why is it that you're not supposed to have fun when you're doing business? Why is emotion not supposed to be involved? Generally, we get them when we ask the question, when did you do your best business deal? And often the answer is, well, it was after a congress somewhere or other in the evening in the bar with colleague XYZ. We had a beer, we shook hands on it, and that was that. What we do at SCHMIDT, and that's perhaps what this festive element, this festival element means. Putting that on an institutional basis and having this in format so that people who want to talk to each other can engage with each other in a different way and talk to each other differently. I think we all need to realise that doing business works differently nowadays than it did in the 1950s. Christian? Well, yes, I can confirm that. I entirely agree with you. As far as I'm concerned, people who've never been to our event say that it doesn't have so much business value. They say, oh, it's so much fun and so on and so forth. But everyone who's been there knows that it's different. There is this festival element, but nonetheless you have to do your homework. and offer added value. Nobody's going to pay money for having a bit of fun, at least not so much money. It's part and parcel of the whole thing. I don't want to go somewhere where it's no fun at all just because I have to go there. Well, if you have people in a good mood, then of course you can get people on board. Sometimes you're making a presentation, you realize there's somebody there who's really struggling to stay awake. And this moderator comes bouncing around the corner and says, oh, here we go. So you have so many different elements. It's possible to really maintain your attention and to really pick up on a lot of information. What was the most surprising thing for you in events and formats that you've organised? It's just something you can pick out and say, we hadn't expected that, but it was actually a great big hit. In 2015, we had the 3-day conference for the first time. The first few days are in a Congress Centre, classical conference format, and then the 3rd day, we went to the October Festival, the Oktoberfest, with all its thousands of participants to one of the festival tents. And so that this did make sense and wasn't just fun, there's the so-called table captain system. You've got successful startup CEOs and journalists and so on, and you have them as the head of the table, and people can go from table to table. I was really worried that when I got there at 9 o'clock in the morning, I thought this was never going to work, but it did work. We're going to do it again for the 4th time this year. And it's always really fantastic as a formula, with a weight off your shoulders. And we call that liquid networking, by the way. That's fantastic, it really is. Liquid networking is a good buzzword. Well, you were talking about the past, weren't you? Well, the 15th of January we got started. We can't really look so much back to the past, but looking forward. We're delighted to be so well received in the group that we're working in. The whole sector's working on the project, which is great. It means we've got our back covered. But adding this festival element, well, think of Hanover as well. When Expo was organised, that's this festival atmosphere. Something was created for the region. If you think of Dortmund as a location, or if you have this sort of project in Munich, it's not just the event organiser who's pleased. It's also something which can help others in the immediate setting to make a profit. It's good for the region. Other people say they want to come on board too. So you can really energize people who help to give it a bit of energy. Well, looking to the future of CeBIT as well, there's 2 points I wanted to say. 2 things I wanted to underline. I was surprised quite how insistently and stubbornly conservative some exhibitors and clients are, and also journalists as well. They tend to use old parameters to assess what we're doing. There's the old world. It's a kind of derogatory term for us. Oh, that's a bit old world, what you're talking about. So this persistence, this tenacity of all the people who are involved with us, that was quite surprising. Something else that I'd forgotten about over the years is how much fun it is when you realize that you've managed to persuade people about a fantastic idea and they catch the bug. It's so fantastic. Frank will confirm this as well, I'm sure. We've got a company that set up this new movement, and there's some people who are on board and there's some who are no longer on board. And those who are no longer on board, and you can see that with our partners as well, those who are not on board any longer are gradually becoming not so cool. It's wonderful to motivate people to be on board and to get this kind of thing rolling. I was quite surprised about that. So let's look to the audience now. Any questions from anybody? I don't want to leave it till the very last moment. There you go. A question over there. Stephanie, it's your go.
Allerdings da der Surfer. Ja. Kurze Vorstellung wäre auch mal schön.
Just a brief introduction, that would be nice. Can I speak English?
Wondering, it's mostly a question for Christian, I think. So when you started your business, was it like a small business at the beginning, I imagine? and I've been throwing electronic music events for like 3-4 years, and we're kind of stuck in the business development as like to make the business profitable for all of our team. We're like 7 to 8 members. We can gather up 1,000 people for an event, but with the whole production cost, it's really hard for us to live out of it. We're barely breaking even each time. So if you have any advice, more like business-wise, how to develop a small business into something you can live out of it eventually? Thank you.
Danke für die Frage. Ich soll auf Deutsch antworten.
Thank you for the question. I'll answer in German because we have interpreters at hand. Good question. Well, it's not easy at the beginning to break even, obviously, and it also took us a while before we reached that point, quite honestly, but it also depends on the kind of context in which you work. It's very, very important to deliver your very best performance so that people who are first-timers at the event really become your ambassadors in a way, and that they spread the word and attract other people. And that's the only way I think that you can become successful in this event business. And I think this also holds true across the board for all sectors in that sense. And other than that, it's lots of hard work, and you need to really dig in and take risks, try to do things differently. If we had simply continued to trundle along the trodden path, then it would have led nowhere. You need to take risks, you need to be innovative in that sense, and it's better to fail than to simply do the same thing everybody else does as well. So things happen when somebody comes up with the idea to do it. Well, I think the idea to create this kind of festival, I thought, prior to having done it, really, I would have probably thought that it's a crazy idea. But then it worked out. Was that a good answer for your question? Where are you from? France, okay. I thought he was from New Zealand, actually. I would have took New Zealand. But of course, these are different approaches, but also different starting conditions as well. So is it as simple as that? Because, I mean, you in your case, you have you can draw on completely different funds as well. Well, budgets haven't really changed, but the expectation that you can make money with it, with this kind of event, is also there. And we also have partners such as the government of the land of the government of the city of Hanover and the land of Lower Saxony are also partners, and they expect to make money. But I think small organizations are quite nimble in that sense, and we have this whole machinery that needs to start up first and needs a bit of a run up there. But yesterday I was asked why we write the E capital letters and what does it mean? I mean, whether it means the end. Of course it doesn't mean the end. It means unity, actually. Entschlossenheit, German word, unity. And I think that's something that we have in common, both you and we also have a small spin-off. I mean, when it comes to an organization that looks back at 70 years like ours, that's quite something. And I think we know that you can fail, but you need to continue. And that is something that holds true both for large organizations such as ours and small organizations. Well, in order to really develop to a kind of festival of for digital contents, you're looking for innovative approaches. First time this year, for example, visitors can stay overnight in a tent at the festival grounds, and they pay 30 euros in order to do that. So what's that? And the question? Well, indeed, that's what we're doing. Is this going to be a one-off in Hanover? No. Well, when I came here, at the train station, I was accosted by a young colleague, who said, well, I heard a presentation at SCHMIDT was great, and it seems that the hotels in Hanover backed this up and are also all working with this innovative product, and we're working with them together, and we're no longer angry about the hike in hotel prices. And we really worked together with hotels. This idea was brought forward by ourselves, and then we proposed it to them. And we said, if you're totally against it, we will not set up that tent. But of course, they cannot offer rooms at 30 euros a price or per night. If you want to attract young people, IT students, design students, marketing students who are curious about digitalization and flock to CBIT, you cannot offer them rooms at 100, 200 euros per night. So what we offer them is an alternative offer, and the tent has already been built up, is already set up. I don't know whether you've already seen it. It's actually quite comfortable. It's a bit like Airbnb, set up, put down a mattress in one tent or another tent, and you can, and given that we're starting up in June, I think the weather should be quite nice and enjoyable. Well, it's a bit of a romantic aspect there, isn't it? I mean, or will there be some accompanying events that's like guitar playing around the firelight? No, it's a bit like Bits and Pretzels and other events. It always has a bit of a the character of a class outing in that sense, or I always was very pleased to see my colleagues from Berlin here, and we've always engaged in that kind of coming together around the firelight, that camp spirit, if you will. And it's also something that can be very conducive to initiating business ties. Well, yes, I'm just listening to that, quite interested. We don't have any tents. We have a different approach, if you allow. We are the largest German, the Initiale, it's the largest German startup, and fair, and the startups can actually stay overnight in the dressing rooms of the Westfalenhalle, the multi-purpose sports facility where the trade fair takes place. And we do believe that this is a way of being innovative and bringing people together, because brings us back to this principle, not overburdening things, not offering things that are impossible. It's about being pragmatic and creating a community, allowing people to get together. And I don't want to, this somewhat hackneyed concept of the get-together, but it is, in effect, what happens, whether it is in tents or at the Oktoberfest or in other places. The important point is bringing people together and allowing them to engage in a meaningful encounter in that sense. I think what we're doing at CBIT, and I think that you probably will all agree with what I just say, we, very late in the game, actually, at CBIT understood that we don't just need a good conference program and good exhibitors in order to be successful. A successful product is based on the visitors themselves, i.e. the kind of interaction that takes place, the kind of conversation that takes place between people who come to the conference. There was just earlier on a colleague who showed me a picture that she has on her smartphone of people putting on cardboard boxes on their heads and taking a funny picture of themselves. That's something that you take back home, and that's something that we did not focus on properly at CBIT in the past, and that's something that we want to change. And I'm pretty sure that you're doing the same. New startups are doing this from day one. They're really focusing on the kind of experience that visitors have and the interaction that takes place. We have roughly 5 minutes left now. Okay, 7 minutes left. But perhaps just some publicity for 2 minutes now. I mean, it's ITB. So here we see novelties in the pipeline there as well. Perhaps you could just raise a drum roll for your own product now. Well, we will have a great speaker lineup this year in order to be a relevant platform for great people. Harking back exactly to what you just meant, we have limited the number of visitors to 5,000. We don't want to grow beyond that. We will have great events, great speakers ranging from the startup to the student to the billionaire investor. We will have startups that will create a platform where people can debate, and in addition to all the fun that we will be experiencing, you will be able to initiate businesses. And I think at the end of the day, we will all be engaged in liquid networking. So, Christian, Those are the producer of Bits and Pretzels. Bollmann. So what can we expect? A new name? Yes, a new name. Well, we're trailblazing this sense. Brand X. Brand X. Brand X. Try it, everybody. Chime in. Brand X. Well, I retain that one. 15th of January in Dortmund. That's world-class capital with a big heart. Looking forward to welcoming you there. We'll have also other events 2 days later where we also last year brought the Maze area. We will be also working together with Peter Blach to create a new festival where participants of the events industry will be coming together, setting up networks, mainly also to facilitate all kinds of encounters and contact points. Liquid networking was one of the buzzwords meant. We will certainly have that too. So please all join us at Brand X in Dortmund. Thank you. Mr. Bollmann. Festivals International. Brand X. Well, SCHMID. First of all, SCHMID will take place in June. Please, the exact dates. From the 11th to the 15th of June. You don't have to repeat that. First thing you need to remember. The second point is business can be fun. That's the second takeaway. And third point, let's stop creating artificial boundaries between consumers and festivals, between fun and festivals, consumers and producers. Let's just interact and engage in great activities and have fun. And third point is innovation is a lot of hard work, but in the end it is it's very rewarding, and I invite you all, really, because it is really, as I said, an open heart surgery that we are engaging in, an experiment in that sense. We are totally fired up to our eyeballs, really, and we really believe in this festival concept, and we are convinced that we will be able to set up something, or to reinvent an event that looks back at 70 years history almost. And if you know something about event organization, you know that this is a lot of hard work, and we invite you to come and participate, be part of this new history, this new chapter that we're opening up in June. Thank you very much for this. Hartwig von Sass, head of SCHMID Press. And one more point, if you have a t-shirt with a lower capital E and not the upper capital letter, then you need to change your t-shirt. Well, you can also buy these t-shirts in green or in red, but I chose this one. SCHMID does not have a classical color scheme anymore. All of that has become liquid, fluid, if you will. But I would just now like to invite these three gentlemen in the name of the organizer. And if you could all just join us and move out of the room, make your way to the back of the room, turn to the left to the mice hub, and there's a glass of bubbly awaiting you there. So thank you very, very much. And thank you to these gentlemen, to the panelists, and enjoy the rest of your day at ITB.